guys, welcome to Amity Tracks. We haven't done a cult video in a while, so I think this is number 5 in that series. We did them, I don't know, in the spring. We were doing a series of them. They were pretty popular. So for those of you who are maybe new subscribers, go back and check out the previous ones. But the idea here is I feature like 5 cult albums. Now, what is a cult album? The definition is pretty loose, right? But, generally these are records that have a pretty devoted following, often are critically loved, but didn't sell a whole lot, or, aren't really kind of known, to the mainstream or whatever. They can even be by some well-known artists, but it's not, typically the album that, was the huge hit or anything. But again, kind of critically beloved and has a following of kind of a strong fan base. So I picked 5 more, and I guess this is the 5th, if my notes are right. I had to double check which ones I had already featured, but got 5 fresh ones here, 5 new ones I hadn't featured before in the cult series. And I'm not ranking them, but we're just going to go, I guess, chronological order makes the most sense. So we're going to start here with Dillard and Clark, with the Fantastic Expedition of Dillard and Clark from 1968. Clark being Gene Clark from the Byrds, Dillard being Doug Dillard, banjo guitar player. And this was one of Gene Clark's sort of projects that he embarked on really soon after he left the Byrds. And a lot of people look at this as one of these great pioneering records in kind of country rock, and I agree. It's some more country than rock, but like this opener, Out on the Side. It's the country rock, but also got a little flange effect in there, so almost like a little psychedelic tinge in there. It's really creative stuff. Who is all over this record is Bernie Leadon, the original guitar player for the Eagles. He's all over this too. I mean, it really should have been. I mean, this really should have been a trio record. Clark, Leadon, and Dillard. But anyway, just great playing on here, and of course, Gene Clark's just unbeatable, just heartbreaking vocals. He's one of the great singers. I love his vocals. And I mean, with Gene Clark, hell, you could you could probably feature almost every record he put out post Byrds in a cult video. I mean, at least the best ones. He had so many great records that people just didn't. The public didn't buy, by and large. In fact, on one of our earlier cult videos, I did feature No Other. Probably the cultish of his cult albums. But this is awesome too. This is so awesome. Like I said, country, some rock, some folk, all kind of blended together, and it's kind of a pioneer in that genre, I think. And they, as a duo, Dillard and Clark, they did put out one more after that, Through the Morning, Through the Night. This is their second record, which is also really good, by the way. And so they just kind of put out 2 records together like that. Polly on here is just one of those gorgeous songs. They do Rocky Top on there. And they also do Don't Let Me Down, the Beatles song. So it's kind of cool. All right. Shifting gears a little bit here, going to 1971. Got a record from Booker T and the MGs. So, one of their later ones, obviously. I mean, they had huge success in the 60s, Green Onions and sort of doing their Booker T treatment, to a lot of covers and some originals as well. And this is a little bit different though. This is 1971. I believe this is the last record of theirs before they kind of broke up for a long time, before they reunited way later. At least, of that original, lineup, or the most famous lineup, I should say, Donald Duck Dunn on bass with that picture. Booker T. Jones, of course, on organ, Al Jackson on drums, and then Steve Cropper on guitar. kind of the house band for Stax Studios, right? And this one, being 71, it's a little groovier. It's a little kind of deeper sounding than some of their 60s stuff. Some longer run times. They a couple tunes on here at 8 minutes. Like the title track, which is so great. Features just some of Booker T's best playing I've ever heard. So good. Steve Cropper is awesome on here too. I mean, they're always in the pocket, deep in the pocket, and it's just this is a great kind of instrumental soul record from the early '70s, and a lot of fans do like Melting Pot, but it didn't really contain any huge some of their better known hits from the '60s, but really great. I have this interesting single kind of it's like a double single. I guess what might maybe call it a maxi single or something, but it's German from Germany. Because all the credits and stuff are in German. And it's got the single version of Melting Pot, the song, about half as long, and then it's got some of their earlier big tunes, from the '60s, like "Time Is Tight," of course, "Soul Limbo," and their version of the "Hang 'Em High" song from the film, I believe. Anyway, it's nice. It's like 245s, and it folds out. This cool picture here, a little unusual, but related. All right. Moving on to 1973, what some call the greatest or like the best known cult band of all time. I mean, people know the Kinks, but there is something cultish about a lot of their stuff. And um, this record is definitely kind of a cult record. Kind of hard to find, but it's not super hard to find. But this is the Great Lost Kinks album. I mean, that's the title. The Great Lost Kinks album. And it's been out of print since about 1975 that I'm aware of. My seconds of research before I filmed this, I don't think it's been in print since '75. It came out '73. The story behind the Kinks were on Reprise Records, and they were moving on to RCA Records, and they owed, at least according to Reprise, they owed one more record. And so, without Dave Davis's approval or even knowledge, or the rest of the Kinks, Reprise put this together and put it out. While I was reading, Dave Davis didn't even know it was a thing until it was out, right? Or Ray Davis. I'm sorry, Ray Davis. You got both Davises, Ray Davis, and it's comprised of a bunch of at the time they were all rarities, but now they're all pretty easy to find because those Kinks reissues that they did on CD are so great, with a bunch of bonus tracks, from their late '60s and the early '70s albums, with all this stuff is available on those bonus tracks. But these were extra tunes that didn't make it on those original kind of late '60s, early '70s classics. But we're sort of part and parcel of that, from Arthur and especially Village Green Preservation Society. It's got Lavender Hill, Groovy Movies, Misty Water, great stuff. The Way Love Used to Be, which was from that soundtrack they did, which I'm drawing a total blank on, but around this time. This Man He Weeps Tonight, one of those great Dave Davis kind of B-sides. I'm Not Like Everyone Else, which was a great B-side from '66. So sort of a hodgepodge, but mainly from that kind of extra tunes from that late '60s period. And, very much sort of a cult thing, because Davis sued and had it, basically they had Reprise discontinue it in '75. But it's not too hard to find out there in the wild. I found this at a record convention however many years back, but yeah, so, but definitely worthwhile, and for Kinks fans especially, even though most of this stuff now is not as hard to find because it's all these bonus tracks, all these reissues. Now, related to this, because I told you there was a Dave Davis B-side, just kind of plug this in real quick. I'm not including this as one of the 5 because this is kind of a bootleg, and so this was never officially released. This is Dave Davis, The Album That Never Was. This is the title of my bootleg copy. But Dave Davis of the Kinks was going to release a solo record in the late '60s. it never really came together. And so, a lot of these songs like "Death of a Clown," "Love Me Till the Sunshine," or no, I think it's Susanna's Still Alive was on there. "Funny Face," like "We're on Something Else" from the Kinks. So some of these tunes ended up just on Kinks records. Some of them were just standalone singles and B-sides. But you put this stuff to, I know the Kinks are so much about Ray Davis, obviously, but I I love Dave Davis's stuff. I love his voice. I like his writing. And this would have been such a great solo album. And so it's cool because this collects those Dave Davis songs, from that late '60s period that would have probably comprised this solo album if he had ever put it out. I don't know why he didn't, because I mean that is a killer record. All right, moving in. So the next one, most of this stuff was recorded, I think 77, 78, not released until 1992. And this is Chris Bell's "I Am the Cosmos." Great album art too. It's the Alps back there, I believe. There's Chris. So Chris Bell was probably the lesser known of that great duo of him and Alex Chilton, who formed, one of the great cult bands of all time, Big Star, right? Everyone loves Big Star. And when Big Star first formed, Chilton and Bell sort of, viewed themselves sort of like a Lennon-McCartney team, and in some ways they were, at least power pop. And that first Big Star record, #1 record, I think is just 5-star genius. And it really is an equal collaboration between Chilton and Bell. Now, Bell would leave Big Star pretty much after that first record, even though he's uncredited, but kind of a part of the second record. And it became Alex Chilton's show. And of course, Chilton, became this great cult figure. But I'm as big of a fan of Chris Bell's material as Alex Chilton. So Bell kind of had a troubled life, sort of the rest of the '70s. And he kind of went in and out of the studio to try and get some music together, with the intention of putting out a solo record. Tragically, he was killed in a car accident in the late '70s. I forget the exact date, but in the late '70s. And then this stuff was finally released about 1992 as this, and I think it's just fantastic. If you like Big Star, this is right with it. The single that came out, there was a two-sided single, kind of double A side, I believe, which was "I Am the Cosmos" and "You and Your Sister," which are both just stunningly great power pop songs, beautiful songs. I think Alex Chilton is, again, uncredited, but on those two songs. But the rest of this record is really good. "Speed of Sound" is probably my favorite song on there. That is just stunningly gorgeous to me. I think he's using this 12-string acoustic. It's just so beautiful. He also rocks out. "I Got Kinda Lost" is great. Yeah, this is fantastic stuff. Sometimes stuff like this, when it's compiled and released way later, doesn't live up to the hype. This lives up to the hype. I mean, this is as good as advertised. And again, if you're a Big Star fan, I mean, he was half of Big Star on that first record. So great stuff. Finally, I'm moving up to 1989, and I don't know, this may be the least cultish of these records, but it's not one that I think was too mainstream. So, and I love it. She was, well, talking about Sean Colvin from Austin, right, close to where I am here in Texas. Sean Colvin's debut album, "Steady On," is just, to me, a stunner. I mean, great folk, kind of folk. I want to say more folk than folk pop, but folkish. It is beautiful. She's a great guitar player, and John Leventhal is all over this record. Really should be co-credited with her, because those two really create this really ethereal sound on here. Now, Sean Colvin, it's hard to call her a cult artist, because she, not from here, but after this, a few records down the road, she did have some kind of moderate hits and sort of became a nationally known name for a little while. And she's kind of fallen back, not as talked about anymore. But that was all a little bit later when she sort of, mainstreamed her sound. I This is a case where this this is a 5-star record. I love this record. I think it is just beautiful. I don't she never got this close again to this. I'll just pulled it out here on CD. Fat City is her second record, which I like. I mean, I do like this record. It's not as great as this, but after this, it's kind of diminishing returns for me, kind of big time. I'm not really interested in, I mean, it brought her some hits and got her on the radio when she sort of mainstreamed her sound a little bit, but she's kind of lost the character on this record. So yeah, I call it a cult record. I don't know, but it gives me an excuse to plug this record because I think it is a phenomenally gorgeous record. All right, guys, another cult records episode in the books. So as usual, in the comments, what are some great cult records you want to recommend? Let's talk cult records. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please do subscribe. It really helps us out. Hit the bell for notifications, like the videos, all that great stuff. And we'll see you next time.